Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
And welcome into the Sunday Journal. I'm your host, Matt Pitta. Thanks for being with us today on this edition of our program. We get together each week to talk about issues that are facing Cape Cod, the islands, and all of southeastern Massachusetts. And today we are again on the road with the Sunday Journal. You know that we like to head out into the community as much as we can to do our programs and bring the information right to you right from the heart of the issue that we're talking about. And today it's a very exciting time. Some of you may have heard about this already on our radio stations or read about it on CapeCod.com, but the Symphony and the Conservatory now has a new leader, and it is the president and CEO of the Cape Arts and Entertainment who has allowed me to come by to visit him in what will be his new office as he takes over for one of the Cape's premier arts organizations here on Cape Cod, Roland Valliere. Roland, it's a pleasure to meet you in person. Thanks for letting me come over today.
Thank you, Matt. It's a delight to be here and appreciate your coming by.
So as we said at the outset, and this is good because it's somewhat new for, I think, our listeners and our readers here on Cape Cod, that when we introduced you as the president and the CEO of Cape Arts and Entertainment, and people are obviously very familiar with the Cape Symphony and the Conservatory, but we're adding in as a couple of years ago, as the organization moved into the attempt to open up a performing arts center, the Oceanside Performing Arts Center organization as part of your group. So basically this position is now an umbrella for all of these efforts here on the Cape.
That's right. It encompasses all three. As you well know, there's a wonderful symphony and a wonderful conservatory, and a big ambition to develop and create a new performing arts center, which would just be an extraordinary thing for the community when it happens.
We're going to talk about that at length here during our segment, Roland, and find out where you folks are in the process, and what your thoughts are about what your thoughts are about what you'd like to see for this facility here on Cape Cod. But first of all, again, it's your chance to say hello to our many listeners and the readers. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided, I think I'm going to check out that job on Cape Cod that Jerome Carter was going to be retiring from.
Yeah, well, as you probably already figured out, my accent has found a home. I'm from Rhode Island originally, and studied in Boston. I was a musician. And really sort of fell into orchestra management, and just had a facility. To me, it was a dream come true to be able to combine my love and passion for music with certain business acumen that I've had, and off I went and had a career, and found myself leading a number of wonderful organizations that achieved great success: the Kansas City Symphony, the Columbus, Ohio Symphony. In between, became a bit of an entrepreneur and worked in Silicon Valley for a little bit in technology, developing what essentially was an app for classical music, and then came back and found myself in Memphis, leading the Memphis Symphony, which is where I am at the moment. So the notion of coming back to the Cape is a coming home of sorts, and the truth be told, I had no idea that such a rich cultural organization of equality and service to the community existed to this degree here. I was just delighted to discover that when I had the opportunity to come and really help be a part of the team moving the organization forward, particularly as corresponds to the new Performing Arts Center. It really was an opportunity that is a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
So in many ways, it was a bit of a homecoming, as you said, from Rhode Island, and I can actually hear the Rhode Island accent. Now that you mention it, that accent.
Near Foxborough, so you can figure out what football team I like, that I support.
So when you saw that posting, when you realized within your community that this job was becoming available after Jerry Carter, and what a great tenure Jerry did here in growing this symphony, was it kind of an instant no-brainer for you, and that I'm absolutely applying for this job?
Well, actually how it worked out is they reached out to me. As I'm sure they did, others as well. Once I learned more about it, had the chance to visit, talk to some of the folks, I became really, really excited about the possibilities, not only what had been accomplished and the great job that Jerry and others have done, but the ability to move the organization to a whole another level, building upon the strong foundation that's been laid.
So you come in a couple of years after the Symphony and the Conservatory merged their forces. They were previously independent, and so that transition, that merger, is now fully in effect, and they've had a lot of success with that. So let's talk about what you see then as the vision, because you have that merged organization with the Symphony, the Conservatory, and as you said, we also have this newer entity with the Oceanside Performing Arts Center, that now the goal is to have a performing arts center, if you will, a standalone, if you will, from where you are now over at Barnstable High School. So what do you envision your job as? Talk to me about what your role is going to be now taking over this position.
Well, I think the idea is to create a world-class cultural jewel, cultural and educational jewel for the community. When I was in Kansas City as executive director, the Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts was getting off the ground, and the feasibility study, much where this feasibility study or process is right now, is where they were at that time. And, these things take a period of time, but can be transformative in the community. In that particular case, I think it was 5 or so years ago now, the Kaufman Center in Kansas City opened. It was a $400 million dual facility. It was a symphony hall as well as a proscenium theater for presenting in the opera and ballet and that sort of thing. And it really has had a transformative effect economically and otherwise on that particular community. I think the same thing can happen here. Obviously, Cape is an extraordinarily beautiful place, and the idea of having a place that people can go to enjoy the greatest music and have the most robust and extraordinary educational experiences is really has great potential. Not just in terms of, in a way, I look at the facility as kind of a hub, particularly, in terms of technology. You can, really extend the reach of the building so far these days, through the use of Internet too and technologies like that, so that you can actually reach out to people's homes, classrooms, and those sorts of things in a way that sort of connects the building to people where they are.
To the degree you can tell us, where are you in the process right now? Progress-wise, I'm sure you're still getting your feet wet to a degree, but where is that process of potentially locating a spot and actually working now towards the funding of such a facility?
Well, I'm in sort of listening and learning mode. I actually don't start until November, so I'm here sort of looking for a place and getting acclimated and that sort of thing. The first phase of feasibility has been done, which is sort of a needs assessment, and that has been very positive. So I think the stage right now is to sort of move towards phase 2 of that, which is in terms of the normal process. That entails fundraising, particularly generating the kind of support that's necessary, because these are not inexpensive endeavors, and you only have one shot to really do it right. And I'm sure that'll happen in an extraordinary way here. So I think that's how this unfolds, and then you choose an architect, you decide where it's going to be located, and all of that. And reaching out into the community is a critical part of that, because at the end of the day, the community, it needs to be of the community, for the community, and owned by the community.
I imagine it's going to be a Herculean task. I'm sure you've been brought up to speed on past efforts to do projects like this on the Cape, the former proposal many years ago for the Box Center over in Mashpee. And so it's got to be done, as you said, methodically, and because you're only really going to probably have one bite at the apple, as you said.
Yeah, that's right. There's a timing for everything. Some of the other facilities, for example, that have been built in recent times, Philadelphia is another one. In Sonoma, there's a beautiful facility at Sonoma State University in California. There have been previous efforts there as well, but the lines need to come together, the synergies need to be there, the desire and resources need to materialize, and those sorts of things. So it seems that this is just the right time for Cape Cod, and so that's very exciting.
You see the organization needing to or having some type of partnership with another entity, another nonprofit, or any type of organization to go forward with this project?
I don't know. I don't want to rush to any kind of conclusions, because I really don't have enough information right now. So as I said, I'm just sort of learning and listening, trying to understand. But what I do know is that this day and age, where there's so much competition for people's time, both live and virtually. In my view, the facility needs to be almost kind of an experiential center, because what people want really is experiences with a capital E, not just classical music, but all kinds of cultural and educational experiences. And I think that that's not only possible, but I think for the Cape, is something where there seems to be a real need.
It sounds like you envision this as not just a home for just the symphony, but really a very diverse facility, if you will, that's going to be able to serve different organizations, the symphony, the conservatory, and perhaps even other organizations.
I think probably. There have been some terrific multi-purpose facilities that really have a very varied and robust, eclectic, sort of series, range of offerings. Again, not to sort of presuppose or prejudge anything, because I don't know, but it seems to me that kind of facility here that really serves, again, the broader community in a multiplicity of ways could be extraordinarily successful.
We are on the road today with the Sunday Journal as we're coming to you from the headquarters of the Symphony and the Conservatory, Cape Arts and Entertainment, and their new president and CEO, Roland Valliere, who has taken over for the retiring Jerry Carter, who had a really great last season and retired at the end of the previous season. Roland is formally coming in November, first week or so in November. So the season will be well underway, and it's an exciting season that we know that you folks are going to have. And as you take a look at it, pretty much it's all set already for you for this season. But it looks like they've got a pretty exciting lineup for this symphony season.
Yeah, I heard the orchestra in rehearsal last night, and I was really, really, blown away in terms of, that's a technical term, by the way, by the, first of all, just the energy. Just in talking to the players, how committed they are, how nice they are, how accomplished and gifted they are. It's really, there was a real nice spirit. Jungho is an extraordinary artistic director, conductor. He and I think, in many ways, are cut from the same cloth. He's a very entrepreneurial thinker. His thinking is outside the norm so far as, beyond classical music. He has a wide array of interest. He looks very broadly. And I think we absolutely agree that at the end of the day, it's all about, as I said, the experience. It's about the customers. That's where that's the beginning and the end point is, is this an experience which is really resonating with colors, is with customers or patrons? Is your hair standing up when you listen to this extraordinary music? And I think the lineup this year really is extraordinary in that way. So I think it's going to be a great, great season. I hope people come out in droves to experience the terrific season that's planned.
I think you're really going to enjoy it. Wait till you see the holiday pops that they put on here. It's really one of the best holiday pops you'll see at any orchestra. So that's going to be a great time coming up later on this year. So.
Oh, that's great.
Let me ask you this while we're on the subject of your conductor and your artistic director, Jungho Park. We've had him on the program many times, and he really does seem to be a bit of a visionary when it comes to the future of symphony orchestras, plural, and that, he said to us repeatedly that you have to really think beyond the box. You have to regenerate new audience. You can't just rely on the traditional symphony audience, and I think he's taken a lot of risks over the years that have really paid off in terms of bringing a pops component to the symphony and bringing in guest artists that would not be a traditional symphony performer that you might think of, country acts, bluegrass acts, etc. So are you in line with that as well, of really expanding the symphony patron?
Yeah, absolutely. I like Jungho have a bottomless curiosity and interest, fascination, you might call it an obsession. I have 220,000 tracks in my iTunes library. It has all kinds of music. Chris Tile, Punch Brothers, from because to Beethoven to contemporary composers to Marcus Roberts to Bill Evans to Jimi Hendrix and Cream and some more contemporary pop artists. So yeah, it's a very eclectic mix. So I think we very much share that sort of broad curiosity about music and otherwise. And so I think in many ways we're cut from the same cloth and of the same coin.
Now, when the Symphony brought in the Conservatory a couple of years ago, those two organizations came together. They then brought on Stephanie Weaver, and Stephanie's done a great job with Conservatory. And I've seen Jungho and Stephanie work together and trying to really leverage the youth of the Conservatory and getting them involved with the Symphony. So let's talk just briefly about kind of that youth element that you may want to be able to tap into from the students that are over at the Conservatory.
Yeah, from what I know, the Conservatory and Stephanie have done an amazing job and provide a real service and are a great resource to this community. And being of the community and for the community is a critical part of our future. And so I think the synergies that exist between the Conservatory and the Symphony are terrific, and I think there's something from which to build.
So we have a couple moments left. You talked about your diverse playlist on your iPod. I think you said it was your iPod or your music player, your iTunes library. Do you have a favorite genre? I mean, outside of perhaps classical music, or if that is your favorite genre, when you relax, when Roland goes home at night and you've had a long day at work and you need to decompress, what would you put on your radio?
Well, it depends. I mean, it really kind of depends on the mood. I mean, if my desert island, what are your desert island pieces? I mean, I'm just crazy about Bach's Goldberg variations. I mean, that would be my desert island piece, particularly Glenn Gould's 1981 recording, because he recorded two, and the comparison of those two is just fascinating. So that would be the piece for me. I'm a huge Beatles fan. I have everything, and I just, I really just love, just listening to, particularly Rubber Soul, is one of my favorite albums. Jazz, Miles Davis. I'm a big Miles Davis fan. I think I have everything in his collection as well. So those are the three that just immediately come to mind.
Now, as we said, you're still kind of getting your bearing, if you will. You officially start in early November, but in about the minute we have left, just in the early days you've been here, what has either maybe surprised you about the Cape, about the organization, things you said, wow, I didn't really know they did this. I didn't know this about the region. Yeah,
it's interesting. I did grow up in Rhode Island, so I would come to the Cape, when I was younger, before we moved to the Midwest. And it's funny. I mean, I thought it'd be sort of a short hiatus when I'd move away, and here it is, some years later, so it's taken a while. But I'm just thrilled to be back, and just really the natural beauty of the place is just stunning. And so to combine that natural beauty with the extraordinary beauty of great music of all kinds, I think just is a compelling opportunity.
We welcome you again to the Cape, and we look forward to seeing you at the concerts and the performances and all the different events. Welcome, Roland, and we look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for being with us today on the Sunday Journal. I'm your host, Matt Pitta.
Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.